What up, Raf leaders? Welcome back to my channel. We are back at Railway Road. This is Railway behind me. That's Railway Road. And this is Conversation Free Road looking south. And we're going to take a walk down Conversation Free Road south, going past Prashad, Nagar, so we can see what has happened since the last time we were in this neck of the woods. So the last time we were in this neck of the woods, there was still some construction going on, and I want to see how far it's gotten since then. So let me flip the camera around so you can see. So guys, this is Conversation Free Road. The last time we were here must have been at least 6 months ago. The reason why I'm back in this neck of the woods is because I wanted to see what has happened to this new pedestrian walkway that we're building in the center of this new Conversation Free Road. And if you get as far as Dennis Street, we're going to see what has happened to Dennis Street since the last time we were here, because it was still under construction. But this is Plantation Bel Air we're walking through. That's Plantation Bel Air on the east side of Conversation Free Road. And on the west side, of course, that's Blakazette Gardens. Right on the west side. We're just going past Mike's Pharmacy now. Let me cross to the other side of the road. Now, Plantation Bel Air, that neighborhood, is the old neighborhood of Dr. Morning. The old neighborhood of Dr. Chetty Jagan. And if you can see way in the distance, see if I can show you, that building, that's the new Pasha Global 5-star hotel. And we're gonna take a look at that, an update on that soon. But this is what is happening here in Plantation Bel Air. Right, that's where Dr. Chetty Jagan lived. We're gonna head down south on this now main road, which is this main road, which is Conversation Free Road. So let me show you what's happening. So yes guys, so we're heading south on Conversation Free Road, and we want to see what has happened to Conversation Free Road through Bel Air, or through Prashad Nagar and Campbellville since the last time we were here. That's Stone Avenue. It's years since we walked through Stone Avenue, so that's probably something that should be on our. Right, Stone Avenue is one of those neighborhoods that should be on our follow-up. But this is what is happening here in Plantation Bel Air. Last time we were here, there were a huge line of trucks parked in this lot. This is one truck now. Right, there's only one of the trucks left here. That's interesting. That's a horse. So, reminds you that this used to be like the countryside when Georgetown was new. This was way outside of Georgetown. In fact, up until recently, it still was a suburb. Right, this is Delhi Street. Right, Delhi Street in Georgetown. And that street, right, this is the street that the house, the family home of Dr. Chetty Jagan is on. It's called New Haven and Belvoir Court. We've seen Dr. Chetty Jagan's house in previous videos, so we're gonna wait to visit it again. to do a follow-up. But what we want to do today is to simply do another walk down this walkway. Now, I said in the previous video, this is a good idea, except that I think this should have been a train line, right? This is a reserve that they've converted into a park. And last time we were here, they were still building these, what do you call them, sinks. So they still have, they've completed these sinks, it seems. But it still seems unfinished, you know, unpolished, a bit rugged. This is Prashad Nagar. Right, so we're back in Prashad Nagar. These houses are on the east side of where we are. Those houses are in Prashad Nagar. And on the west side, those houses are in Campbellville. You can see along this street, you can see Sheriff. That is the Sheriff Medical Center on Sheriff Street. That's where we are in relation to Sheriff Street. And of course, this is the new building that I pointed out while we were walking on Railway Road. So that's Campbellville, right? And that way we've come from that way. On the west side of this road, right? The west side of Conversation Tree is that side, that is Blegazette Gardens. And on the east side, which I pointed out, that's Plantation Bel Air. And beyond that is Bel Air Springs and Bel Air Gardens and so on, two gated communities. But here we are heading south. On the east side is Prashad Nagar. And on the west side, morning. What's happening? Not yet. And on the other side, that is Campbellville. So what we're talking about here is this walkway. They built this walkway, what now is about 2 years. But the last time we were here, which is probably more than a year ago, they were still building these things. This is supposed to be an outdoor sink. It doesn't seem to have been hooked up to water yet, so although completed in some rustic fashion and painted, these sinks tend to still have some kind of unfinished. Morning. Okay. All right. So this guy is pointing out that these bins are actually retaining. These bins are retaining water because there's no hole to let the water out when it rains. So it's very, very heavy to lift. That's what he was saying. So these are the things that have to be pointed out, that the contractor and the government who's building these public infrastructure are not paying attention to, right? These are details. The detail the guy is pointing out is that these bins that they've put on the side of the road, those bins are filling up with water. It's just a rainy season. It rains every day, sometimes half of the day. Like for 12 hours a day, it rains on and off. And eventually what happens is those bins get filled up with water, and that's what he's pointing out. And they can't lift them because they're so heavy. The solution to that, he says, is punching holes in the bottom so that the water drains, leaving the trash behind in the bin. So what has happened since we were here, they've actually painted these outdoor pieces of furniture that were built. These are really concrete tables and benches. This one actually has a spider Can you see that? This one has a spider, but this is a foot washing station. I don't know whose idea this is, but it's certainly not a North American idea. So here are some of the benches that were built. Here are some basically picnic tables and benches made out of concrete. They've been painted, and these guys that we just passed, they were actually doing the weeding, sort of cutting the grass and removing the trash, and that's what he was pointing out. And this is another one of these sinks that have been painted, but certainly not hooked up to water. This is another supermarket. I think this, so one of the reasons why I'm here is to point out this controversy. So one of the reasons why I'm passing this way is to point out some controversy. I did a video a few years ago on China's global impact on Guyana. This AWEI, Away supermarket, is a Chinese supermarket that the mayor has stopped the opening of, because apparently they started to build this and open this Chinese supermarket. The Chinese owners, Chinese nationals from China, started to build and open this supermarket without permission from the lands and surveys and from the mayor and city council. There are no building permits and so on. So it turns out that the Chinese are running into some problems here. There are a lot of Chinese supermarkets showing up all across the country, which is very good for the local communities. You know, it sort of gives an alternative place to shop for groceries and brings distribution, that is food distribution, closer to communities. So the Chinese are actually doing a good job of filling that space, opening supermarkets in the local communities in Guyana. The problem is, and I actually do shop from time to time at the Chinese supermarket, full disclosure, because it's convenient. The problem is that they don't always follow the rules. They don't always, in this case, for example, the Chinese guys who were opening that supermarket got no permits to do so. They didn't consult the city hall and the city engineers for building permits and construction permits. They didn't consult the lands and surveys and so on for the planning and so on. So they're running into problems. We're just passing Pike Street and pointing out, this is Pike Street in Campbellville. That's looking west, right? West into Campbellville, Pike Street. But on the other side, this street into Prashad, Nagar becomes see if you can read the name. Chandra Nagar Street. So that becomes Chandra Nagar Street in Prashad Nagar. I've discussed in previous videos the origins of Prashad Nagar, how Mr. Prashad himself acquired this land and developed it into a community. But here are two things I'm meaning to point out on this walk on the new walkway. Firstly, like I said in the beginning, I thought this would be a good place to put a metro line connecting this neighborhood, for example, collect with stops. What do you call these? Train stops, platforms, train stations, all along this street, connecting this neighborhood, Prashad Nagar, And this neighborhood, Campbellville, with downtown Georgetown, because you would have a line, a light rail line, running the length of this railway, this Conversation Tree Road, all the way to the seawall, right? And you would take it all the way to Dennis Street, and at Dennis Street you could have a connecting line. Now this line could go all the way to South Cromwell, because this is supposed to be a reserve. We're walking on a reserve. The city planners had created this reserve long before this area was developed, and for transportation, for throughway. So there could have been a trainway line, and they probably should be in the future, a metro line, say a north-south metro that runs all the way as far as Diamond, from here to Diamond, right? Because that reserve should exist, and maybe elevate it over some houses if it doesn't exist, make it an elevated line. But putting train stations all along the way and having an intersecting line east-west along Dennis Street, and again maybe a loop. It loops along Dennis Street, goes all the way along the waterfront, that is Water Street, to the back road, which is Mandela Avenue, and then heads all the way to perhaps Ogle, right? And loops around, comes back along that Ogle Road, and back along Dennis Street, past places like Cummings Lodge and UG campus, so you could have a stop at UG and so on. So that was what I was pointing out last time we were in this neck of the woods. However, this is what we got. What we got is a walkway down the center of this embankment. And I'm pointing out this because it's a political issue too, right? Because the politicians are the ones who are making these decisions. And that's why election season is a topic, because the direction of the country depends on how we vote. And what we've voted for so far is this mediocrity, right? This mediocrity, because at the very least, this walkway should be covered. There should be a covered walkway. They should have built a roof over it, so that in the daytime when it rains, or whether the sun is out, because you're in a tropical country, you should be able to walk comfortably along this walkway. And you can't do that right now, because if it rains, you will get wet. And if it's sunny, it'll be so hot that people prefer not to be outdoors, right? But if you had a roof over it, you had a shade over it, then you'd be able to use it regardless of the weather. And that is what is called forward thinking, vision, and that's what's absent. People see this as complaining, but it's not complaining. Like the guys who just pointed out, there are no holes in the bins. This is just attention to detail, right? What I'm pointing out is that there is absence of attention to detail. It's another ambulance, I think might be sheriff, I don't know, heading north on New Conversation Tree Road. Now, this is interesting. They've added a guardrail. It's kind of nice, because if this is going to be a park where children are expected to play, then it should be separated from the traffic. So this is a new guardrail has been added. Right, they've added a guardrail to this section of the park, and it goes all the way, I think it goes all the way to Chandra Nagar Street. So on this side, it goes all the way to Chandra Nagar Street, where we just crossed, we just passed. So this is a development that has happened since the last time we were in this neck of the woods. They've added the guardrail, but like I said, I would have hoped that they would also add a roof over the walkway, that pedestrian walkway. And although they've painted this furniture, the grass is still unkempt, right? So it's not maintained, not manicured, and therefore it just looks abandoned, like an abandoned field. And for those of you who think that's complaining, no, that's not complaining. That's pointing out a level of attention to detail and polish, a lack of polish, lack of finish that would make the city great instead of just mediocre. Right? A lot of what I'm pointing out is mediocrity. Like these sinks, these outdoor sinks. What if they had just built a, I was looking back where we've come from, right along the walkway. What if they had just built concession stands, just like they built, those concession buildings that they built at Kingston, at the seawall, Kingston Seawall, Kingston Esplanade? What if they had built similar concession stands here along this walkway in this park and had made it possible for people to simply use a bathroom, public restroom, toilet, and so on, and be able to buy some refreshment? That is what would make this great instead of just mediocre. So what I'm pointing out is attention to detail. Right? Morning. You too. So what I'm pointing out is attention to detail. What if they had made a railway line? What if they had put a roof over this walkway? These are the details that come with vision, and because these decisions are being made by politicians, then elections become important, because what we get in each election cycle, after each election cycle, depends on who we elect. Because unfortunately, the people making these decisions are politicians. They're not technocrats. They're not people who are city planners, for example. Right? So that's what's happening here on Conversation Tree Road. Now, as you approach Dennis Street, you can see the park gets narrower. The park literally ends at Dennis Street. And on the other side of Dennis Street, in the distance, where construction seems to be still going on, all that construction material, construction equipment. On the other side, it becomes Section K Campbellville on the west, and Llama Gardens on the east side. So the neighborhood changes and the park ends, but the reserve continues, although narrower, and still could be used for a metro line, a metro train line. And that continues to be a definite need, a dire need, because of the increase in traffic. Like I said, this is one of the fastest growing countries in the world. This is First Street, right? First Street and Delhi Street. We're at First Street and Delhi Street. First Street is in Prashad, in that side, that is Campbellville. And Delhi Street, we're on Delhi Street. We're on Delhi Street. And the other side is Prashad Nagar. Let's see what's the name of this street. Guess we have to get closer to see it. In Prashad Nagar, the streets change, the name of the street changes. So in Campbellville, this is First Street. But in Prashad Nagar, this is called Sachi Bazaar. Right, that's Sachi Bazaar Street. Right, so this is Sachi Bazaar Street in Prashad Nagar. See, there's still some new construction, new houses going up in Prashad Nagar. I'm going to walk around Prashad Nagar. Last time we were here walking around, it's probably about 2 years ago. You have to go back into the archives to see the videos I made 2 years ago in Prashad Nagar. Since then, there were a lot of mega mansions on the construction, some completed, and we need to make a return trip to see if the ones that were on the construction have been completed. But yes, guys, this is the end of, we're heading to the end of Conversation Tree Road, and the discussion we've been having is that a lot of the decisions that are being made for this kind of infrastructure development is being made by politicians, and therefore elections in Guyana matter because it's the politicians who decide what quality and what type of infrastructure is being built. And a lot of my complaint is about a lack of vision, about so much mediocrity, and about the lack of attention to detail. Even if you build something like this, some details would help make it easier to accept, like a covered walkway that allows you to make this an all-weather walkway. You can use it in rainy season or in sunny weather. That's where we've come from. Look, we've come all the way from Railway Road down to Dennis Street. This one is Omai Street. You can see there's still some construction going on here. Right, the piles of construction material. There was a time when you couldn't cross over onto Dennis Street from Conversation Tree Road, but now this culvert has been completed, this bridge, right? This bridge has been completed, and now you can go straight from Conversation Tree Road to Dennis Street, which is this intersection. And what's happening next? They're actually working on building out and widening those streets in the next neighborhood, which is Lama Gardens. So that's Lama Gardens, and they're working on widening these roads, continuation of Conversation Tree, although I don't know if the name changes. Right, Conversation Tree Road, if it continues, will now go all the way to Durban Backlands. That's behind the new mall. Right, where this road passes is behind the new Royal International Mall and the Botanical Gardens and so on. But this is what's happening here, guys. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening here in Prashad, Nagar, on Conversation Tree Road in Georgetown, Guyana. Later! So let's go now along Dennis Street, and I'll show you that in the next video.